very volatile moment, in a very volatile situation that has a hair trigger, and anything can set that bomb off, right? And so a lot of what we as realtors are tasked with doing in most transactions or most deals is finding a way to help our clients navigate the minefields of their emotions, as well as the emotions on the other side of that negotiating table, and figure out a way to make it to that finish line, make it to the closing table without setting off any of these bombs that blows up the deal, right? And so welcome to the Home Goals Podcast, the ultimate guide for turning your home goals into a reality. I'm your host, Derek Thornton. Join us as we navigate the twists and turns of obtaining a home. We'll be offering expert tips, helping you avoid pitfalls, and championing your journey towards that cherished place to call home. In this week's episode, I wanted to take some time to reflect on what I believe is one of the biggest deal killers of all time. It is the thing that has cost more past clients of mine, more people in this business money than anything else. This issue has caused people to lose money more than financing issues, more than inspections, more than anything else that you may think of that could destroy a deal. This one feature, this one thing truly can kill a transaction, and that is emotion. It sounds silly, it sounds crazy, but again, I have seen it time and time and time again. And I've said it before, even on this podcast, residential real estate is incredibly emotional, more so than almost any other industry that I can think of where you're dealing with transactions of this size, this magnitude. But you figure there's so much of somebody's life that is wrapped up in the place that they call home. When someone is going to sell, when someone's going to buy, so much of who you are and what you consider to be the place that is your kind of safe haven, the place that you feel most at ease, the place where you spend the majority of your time, it always ties back into your home. And it has a very real emotional tie that most people just truly don't even recognize or realize until they're in the thick of things. Moving is right up there with one of being the most stressful activities and things that you can do in your life. And so when you take the stress of a move and then also add on top of that the emotion that comes into it, a typical real estate transaction, you're dealing with a very, very volatile moment in a very volatile situation that has a hair trigger, and anything can set that bomb off, right? And so a lot of what we as realtors are tasked with doing in most transactions or most deals is finding a way to help our clients navigate the minefields of their emotions, as well as the emotions on the other side of that negotiating table, and figure out a way to make it to that finish line, make it to the closing table without setting off any of these bombs that blows up the deal, right? And so it is one thing that I feel like even as agents, we weren't adequately or appropriately prepared for when we got into the business, right? When you get your license and everything, they tell you, hey, here's all the classes you need to take. Here's all the laws and things you need to know. Here's the book for you to kind of figure out how to stay out of real estate jail, quote unquote. They teach you all that stuff, right? And they even teach you how to do the nuts and bolts of the deal, how to fill out a paperwork and all the transaction stuff. That stuff's all well and fine and a very much important part of our job. But the thing that we are never fully prepared for until we're actually in the thick of a transaction or a deal is just how much we're having to deal with and manage and help emotions, right? When people have their emotions at a high level, it becomes very difficult for you to make rational decisions, right? So if you were on the outside looking in, you could clearly see, oh, that's the best way to kind of navigate this option, right? That's the best way to go through this deal. But when you're in the thick of things and your emotions are on high alert, it causes a lot of people to kind of act outside of their own best interest. I think back to a deal I had a few years ago working with a buyer, and things were going smoothly. It was a house that they had purchased very quickly. Like we had, I remember they were heading out of town and they had gotten back and we immediately set up a showing for this house. They loved it. We wrote up an offer. It had only been on the market for about a day or two, but it was a very popular neighborhood, beautiful home. Everything about it was straight out of a movie, and it was just an awesome opportunity for them. And fortunately, they ended up getting the house. And so we were high-fiving, celebrating, like, yes, this is awesome. We got under contract on the house. Everything's moving along smoothly. And we get to the part where we're going through inspections. And they had gone through inspections. Again, a lot of the stuff wasn't really too crazy. It was what I would see in a normal inspection for a house or a home of that age. Nothing that was too surprising or too crazy. It's about on par with what you would expect to see. And in this particular situation, I remember the parents of those buyers had gotten a hold of the report and had talked to the buyers and basically convinced them that, hey, these sellers are trying to get over on you. Right. There's these repairs that they need to demand to have fixed. And if they don't fix these things, it's an issue. And they had reached out to some contractors and found out that there had been some stuff that had been worked on in the past. And so now they were having trust issues with that particular seller. Again, nothing out of the ordinary from what I had seen in most transactions. But again, once that seed had been planted that, hey, this seller's trying to get over on you, it's very difficult to pull people back into the equation or into the fold after that mix. And so once that trust became fractured, it became incredibly difficult to go through any part of that deal, to navigate any of the features, any of the terms when we're trying to negotiate. Negotiations usually only work out well if there's a good faith efforts on both sides, right? If both sides are in agreement that they trust one another, if the trust is fractured, it is going to make that negotiation next to impossible. Because again, you have to trust that the other side is going to do what they said they're going to do, that they're going to honor their word. And if you don't believe that, it makes every part of that conversation a non-starter if you can't even agree on that initial phase of just trusting them in the first place, right? And so it's something that's very important to keep in mind. It's very pivotal in the way that most transactions or deals work out. And in this particular case, they just did not trust these people anymore. And so we went through negotiations, and they were consenting and agreeing to do a lot of things that most sellers would not, right? They were going above and beyond, in my opinion, of what a normal seller will typically do. And I shared that with the buyers. I let them know, like, hey, just so you guys know, we live in a state where every house is technically purchased as is. They don't have to do anything, right? So they're agreeing to work with us because they know it's more convenient for them to make this deal work out. And so we kept going through the process and getting everything set up. And then eventually we reached the point to where it was like, hey, it's do or die. What do you want to do? Do you want to stay in this deal or not? And they just couldn't get over that initial thought that the seller was trying to get over on them, and they ultimately walked away from the deal. They lost all the money they spent on inspections, the money they spent on the due diligence fee. All that was lost. But to make matters worse, or to compound matters, once they closed out that deal, they struggled to find something else that was still in that area. And then we had the spring market came around, and the market exploded, and there was just a ton of popularity, and there was all these houses that were hitting the market, and the market was just going bonkers in every way possible. And they eventually came across another home that was in that same area, but this home was older, it was dated, wasn't nearly as fixed up as the other one was, didn't have a lot of the other features that first home had. But it was in the area that they wanted, and it was the ideal fit. And so they moved forward with that house and got there. But when all was said and done, not only did they lose all the money that they would have just spent or lost out on that first house, but they ended up paying several $100,000 more for the new house than they would pay for the old one. And so that was just another opportunity where they kind of look back and realize, like, man, yes, we're happy that we have a house and everything too, but the same token, if we had kind of be able to quell our emotions, quell the rage that was filling up in us, the mistrust that we had in that particular situation, it could have saved us so much time, so much money, so much heartache throughout the transaction. And that was just one of countless examples. I've had other opportunities where I've seen deals fall apart over a few $100s, right? Both sides feel like they can't come to an agreement, and both sides feel like they've given as much as they're willing to give, and they literally walked away from thousands of dollars over a couple $100 issue. Because again, emotions always come into play, and they can wreak havoc in a deal or a transaction. And so I really think that it's important to kind of help people to understand that. I try to keep an even keel and an even frame through most transactions or deals, because I don't want to heighten the issues that my clients are already feeling, right? I'm here to be your advocate, here to work for you and make sure that you don't make decisions that you regret. But in addition to that, I also want to make sure that you know going into it, hey, I'm probably not going to be thinking in my right state of mind once I go through this deal. I know realtors who will hire other realtors to represent them in a deal because they know my emotions are going to be all out of whack, and I'm not going to be able to rationally think about how to navigate this deal on my own. I need another person, an objective third party, to help me through this transaction, right? And so if other realtors are willing to do that, imagine how it is with just the average person who's not in this business day in and day out and doesn't get to go through these deals or transactions on a regular basis. And so I cannot advise you enough to really make sure that you are going into it with an open mind, that you're self-aware, that you understand your strengths, your weaknesses, areas where you are prone to jump outside of rational decision making, because I can tell you, once you're in the thick of that deal, it's too late for you to then go back and try to figure out how to be a rational person in there, right? It's best for you to do that before you ever even enter the transaction. And that is going to serve you far better than anything else you could do to prepare for the home buying process. So I hope that you all find that information helpful. Again, I know it felt like something maybe that you don't need to technically go through, but I've seen it time and time again. That is one of the most important factors for you to pay attention to in an average real estate transaction. So I hope that that's helpful for you all. As always, I'm here to be a resource for you and help in any way that I can. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next week.